In this video, I'd like to go over some of the information on the sound files again. In the last video, I didn't have full details on how to activate some of the sounds, but I have since received full instructions from Ellis Clark's. Function 1 is kind of self-explanatory. It's fade in, fade out of the sound. Function 0, opening and closing the firebox. You can hear the firebox opening. Once the firebox is open, you can shovel coal with function 6. To close it again. So that's the firebox closed. Function 2 was described as a break sound. And it does make a sound. The more you hold it, the longer it goes. But it is actually a functional key as well. It is actually a break function. So when the loco is moving, it will decelerate the loco. And holding it long term is like an emergency brake. Functions 3 and 4 are the whistles. One whistle, multiple whistles on function 4. The length of the whistle will vary depending on the speed of the loco. There are 8 different whistle sounds which are selected automatically by the decoder depending on speed. The Black 5 was originally equipped with a Stanier hooter. Most retained this as the audible warning device, AWD. This is the default option. There is an option to change the whistle type using CV842. For changing the whistle type, you use CV843. The instructions did actually have a misprint on one part, but I've checked and it is 843 rather than 842. The default value of the CV843 is 108. To change the whistle type, you reduce by 9. This brings the CV value down to 99. And once you've changed CV843 to 99, it changes the whistle type. Strange whistle, I don't really like it, so I'll go back to the hooter. I've reverted back to CV843 value of 108 and I have my hooter back. I much prefer that. To equip the model with air brakes, pump and Spirax valves as fitted to the real locos certified for current day mainline operation, a variation is required, changing CV843 to 76. That's a reduction of 32 from the 108. You can also change both the air brakes, pump, Spirax valves and whistle with a reduction of 41. That's 32 plus 9, giving a value on the CV of 67. And you can always change it back by just going into CV843 and put it back to 108. You can make changes whenever or as often as you wish. A CV8 equal to 8 will reset and restore all CVs to the sound project defaults with no loss of sounds. Option 5, described as reverser cutoff effect. You can toggle between full gear and cutoff. Full gear is to start with a heavy train. The chuffs are loud and more harsh. Cutoff is for light engine movement. The driver will reduce the duration for which steam is admitted to the cylinders. Toggle the F5 key to change between the two. Function 7, live steam injector sound. And function lower sound. It mentions here see also maintain steam feature, which is function 22, which we'll look at in a sec. Function 10, safety valves lifted. This sound is both randomly generated and manually controlled. Manual control on function 10. It also kicks in automatically at times. Function 11 is the handbrake function, only possible to activate while the loco is standing.
Handbrake on. Handbrake on. Okay, thanks.
When F11 is engaged, the sound of the handbrake being wound on will be heard. When this sound stops, the model will no longer be drivable. To release, disengage F11.
Brakes. Handbrake off.
Now the loco can be driven again. I covered function 12 before in the earlier video, but just to go over it again. While standing, the dispatch whistle will sound. There are a pool of whistle sounds available, so a random whistle will be played. When moving, function 12 operates the detonators. The detonators would be placed at fixed intervals. The faster the road speed, the quicker the sound will repeat. When you hear the first bang, reduce the throttle to 0 and hit the brake function F2 for an emergency stop. If you manage to stop the loco in time, you may prevent subsequent detonations. Function 13, wagon snatching and buffering. For this sound to operate, the loco moves off and accelerates more rapidly. The loco must not be in light engine mode. The sound of the coupling taking up slack as the train stretches plays. When the loco decelerates more rapidly, the sound of several wagons buffering up is played each time. So let's try it. Function 14 is a special Zimo function, light engine mode. The inertia and momentum settings are set high by default, producing acceleration and deceleration rates expected from a heavy train. A light engine can respond to controls more rapidly, so when engaged, F14 will instantly reduce inertia and momentum to provide a more brisk acceleration and deceleration. Function 15 is to simulate cylinder drain cocks open. We've already covered in the previous video function 16, load coal to tender sound. And function 17, filling tender water tank. Function 18 is the shunt mode. When engaged, the speed will be reduced by 1/2 and all inertia and momentum will be removed. So it helps with fine control, it's not really a sound function. Function 19, select from 6 overall sound levels. So each engagement cycles to the next level. So you've got 6 different sound levels to choose from. It does have an effect on the sound. Each time you toggle up through function 19, the sound gets a bit louder. I'd already changed CV266. I'd increased it to about 140. I was on to Ellis Clark, and level they found for good sound was up to about 180. The maximum CV is 255. If you want fairly loud sound, 180 would be the recommended max. Function 19, we covered that in the earlier video. It's just to switch the lamps on and off, front and back. F21 is active buffering and coupling feature. Bring the loco to a halt around 6 scale feet short of standing stock. The feature will not work if the loco is moving. Engage F21 and you will hear a voice saying draw up. And then move the loco towards the stock and operate the manual brake. Function 22 is active operational steam management feature. This is where the playability comes in. This is a new feature developed especially for Ellis Clark Trains Black 5. It's an optional feature on key 22. It adds some realism by requiring the operator to make certain actions in a timely manner. If F22 is engaged, as soon as the loco begins to move, the remaining steam will reduce while driving. The fireman can influence the likelihood of such an event by managing the fire and the boiler water levels correctly. So you need to add coal, etc. You can disable the feature at any time by disengaging F22. And the remaining features are fairly self-explanatory. We covered the ejector and F24, 25 and 26 in the previous video. There is an F27, but it's more so for using DC analog, and it's required to allow the lamps to be illuminated. F28 has no effect on DCC. It's assigned to activate firebox flicker on a DCC analog. There are many other options. I'll try to add a full copy of the instructions in the comments.